Hi everyone. So we covered the first part, that is the basic and introduction of the fixed income portfolio. Now we move to the a little complex part, which is basically managing multiple, cash flows, multiple liabilities. What are the various ways of managing the risk, creating a passive way to manage your fixed income and everything. So we learned about the immunization in the first part. There are the segregation in this chapter is basically they have multiple techniques for managing a single liability and managing multiple liabilities, and what are the risks involved, what are the characteristics and everything. So we have discussed that immunization means to ensure that the future value of assets is equal to future value of liability, or in other words, the present value of assets is greater than the present value of liability. That is basically you need to be slightly overfunded to manage your liabilities. For cash flow matching for a very a single liability, you can buy a ZCB investment, which is a zero coupon bond having no interim cash flow, and you can buy it for the same maturity falling in the same bucket. So this could this could be a very simple way to immunize a single liability. Over here, what we'll come back to the duration and convexity after. Let me just explain this part, which is important in the coming up topics. Money duration, basically it is the modified duration, 1 basis point into the portfolio value, otherwise also known as PV01. Now over here this is important because whenever we are doing a cash flow matching, and if it is a long term instrument, it is still exposed to an interest rate risk. So to manage the interest rate risk, you have to manage both the duration and convexity. Now, we had discussed in the previous slides that the duration and convexity impact on price is basically this formula: duration into change in YTM plus 1 by 2 into change in convexity into change in square of the YTM into change in square of the YTM. Okay. And from there we can derive that convexity is this formula. So don't ask me from where this formula is coming. This has been given as is in the book. I have googled myself as to how this formula has come for my own knowledge. You can do the same. So what the author is trying to say over here is convexity. It is good for your fixed income portfolio, right? Because we know that if the convexity is greater, then if the interest rate falls, the rise in the price will be greater, and if the interest rate falls by a large amount, the downside will be protected. If your convexity is more, you can make out from this formula itself. It has a positive sign against it. So whatever happens to the price, if the convexity is significant, it is good for the portfolio. But what will happen is how will you identify that what factors are impacting your convexity? So this is the breakdown of the formula. It is macular duration square plus macular duration plus dispersion upon 1 plus IRR the whole square. So dispersion over here is basically the cash flows dispersion around the liability, right? So the greater the dispersion, greater is the convexity. So if you want to increase the convexity of the portfolio, you will choose an asset which has a greater dispersion or a greater duration or a lower IRR, because then you want to increase the convexity, right? So this is just a formula description. The use of dispersion will come in the techniques that we'll learn ahead. But this is the breakdown of the formula. And whether it's single liability or a multiple liability, you are always open to interest rate risk, and there could be changes in yield curve, right? So that's very basic thing. The changes in yield curve could be both parallel and non-parallel. So we will see what will be the impact of parallel and non-parallel yield curve. One important note that you need to understand over here is the goal of the portfolio is to earn the IRR and not the average YTM. So what the author over here is trying to say is when we do a portfolio, so there are multiple cash flows, right? And yield against, so multiple instruments and yield against all the instrument. You can do an average YTM, but this average YTM will not work for you if you have a portfolio wherein your agenda is to match the cash flow IRR. So what you need to do is basically take individual securities, take the cash flows, compute the IRR for each cash flows, and so on and so forth. There are some 6 to 7 steps given in the book. You can compute that IRR. It's not required in the exam. It's just given for your information that the goal is to earn the initial IRR and not the YTM. What the author is telling over here is basically if you take YTM as the base as a substitute for IRR, then you could end up with an underfunded portfolio because you have taken the lesser yield to maturity as a base. So this is a counterintuitive statement that I have written over here. Minimize the convexity and dispersion of assets to reduce the structural risk. But what we discussed over here earlier, that convexity is good for your bond. See, convexity is good for your bond for parallel changes, right? If it is a parallel change, the convexity is good for your bond. But if it is not a parallel change, then the convexity is not good for your bond because it will lead to a structural risk. What is the structural risk? We will see in the next slide. So, parallel and non-parallel shifts. There are two types of shifts. I'm taking a, let me just use, yeah. So let me take this as a yield curve. A movement over here is a parallel, a movement over here is a parallel. This is not the actual scenario, but yeah. So this could be the parallel shift. I'm not covering the parallel shift. It is very simple. It's done in the L1, L2 both. So for the parallel shift, the duration is good. Now what we need to understand is the structural risk. Okay, the yield curve could be having a steepening twist. What is steepening twist? Assume this is a yield curve, right? This is a yield curve, and in the steepening twist, what will happen is your long term will go higher, medium term will remain the same, short term will go down. So short term is going down, long term is going higher, medium term remains the same. You can say medium term over here, long term over here, short term over here. So this is the steepening effect. Yield curve could have this effect. This is a structural risk. It's not a parallel movement. Similarly, you could have a scenario where the short term is increasing and the long term is decreasing. The medium term remains the same. Here the yield curve is flattening, long term is decreasing, short term is increasing. From here it has gone to here. The medium term is same. And then there is a butterfly twist. So we'll come to the butterfly twist. What we're trying to say over here is your liabilities which are positioned in your short term bucket, medium term bucket, and liability in the long term bucket, everything will get impacted because of the yield curve changes. So here there will be a significant loss in price. Your assets will go down. Over here, the assets will go up since the yield curve is going down. There will be a mismatch. What you need to do in these mismatches, basically you have to rebalance your portfolio. So we'll come to that. Okay, so let's go back to positive and negative butterfly twist. So what is a butterfly twist? Let me have this yield curve again. Right. What we saw is the long term going up and the short term going down and medium term remaining same. The medium term could also take such a way. See, the short term could increase, the medium term could go down, and the long term could increase, right? This could also be a scenario. This is the shape of a butterfly. The long term is increasing, short term is increasing, medium term is going down. So this is known as the positive butterfly twist. So your liabilities over here, they will lose their values, which is beneficial for you, but your assets will also lose the value because your interest rates are increasing. Here the interest rates are going down, again this is increasing, so you'll have to do a mismatch. What is a negative butterfly effect is simple. It will be the opposite, obviously. Long term goes down, short term goes down, and medium term goes up. Point over here is basically every time the yield curve has a structural risk, your IRR will change, right? because now your assets are pointing to some other yield curves. Your assets originally was at X yield curve, now it is at Y yield curve. So your present value of assets and present value of liabilities will have a mismatch. You have to make sure this equals this. So you'll have to adjust the IRR. To adjust the IRR, you'll have to rebalance the portfolio, add and subtract assets in the portfolio such that the PVA equals to PVL, right? So this is the agenda of explaining that what would be the impact of yield curve. Let's move ahead. So immunizing multiple liabilities. So we have already learned cash flow matching. So there are very simple methods. So suppose you have multiple liabilities, every month you have a liability payout. So what you can do? So suppose you have a 10-year payout. You can make invest in a bond which is maturing in 10 year, second in 9 year, 8 year, 7 year, 6 year. Like this, you can create a ladder of cash flows, right? So for each liability, there is an asset and it is totally funded. Now, if I have an asset for each liability, and essentially my net debt is zero, net asset is zero, net liability is zero, everything is zero. So what I'll do is might as well take both of them off the balance sheet so that my balance sheet is much more cleaner and easier to understand. This term is known as accounting defiance or whatever you call it. So basically, since the assets are dedicated for these liabilities, you can take them off the balance sheet. And that is why whenever you're doing a fundamental analysis, it's important to see what are the footnotes of the balance sheet. So in the footnotes, it will be mentioned what are the assets which are kept aside for the liabilities. Now, there's a statement that I've highlighted that the portfolio is open to reinvestment risk as number of portfolios cannot be exactly matched. So if I have an asset and a liability portfolio, I cannot have exact matching that, okay, on 13th of June, my liability portfolio is due. So on 13th of June, my asset should also get matured. I might have an asset maturing on 8th of June. So I'm open to reinvestment risk because I have a 5-day window for my liability to come. So what I'm open to is basically, since I say it's a I'll take this in days. So let's say it's a 5-day year. See, the yield curve is on the shorter end, right? On the shorter end, the interest rate is low. So in this scenario, I am open to the reinvestment risk because I have to invest in a lower rate by TM for a shorter tenor. So this is the reinvestment risk that the asset portfolio is open to. For duration, we have discussed that match the money duration. PVA of asset should be greater than PVA of liabilities, and BPV of asset is greater than BPV of liability. So what is BPV? We discussed in the previous slide that BPV is nothing but PV01 duration into 1 basis point into portfolio value. Match the duration of the assets and liabilities. The duration gap is 0. We discussed that dispersion of assets should be greater than liability cash flows, but you should not be so much greater that there is a shaping risk, right? What is shaping risk? We discussed steepening or flattening is shaping risk. Okay. So as a fund manager, if you are facing a duration mismatch, the best and the cheapest way to do is basically enter into futures and match your duration, right? We learned that the duration can be matched by either taking leverage or entering into a swap, doing a opposite transaction so that the duration negates. Or the simplest and the easiest way, the most liquid way, is to do a exchange traded derivative, which is the BPV of futures. So what is BPV of futures? Again, remember BPV is nothing but PV01. It is basically the PV01 of a cheapest to delivery bond. We know what is cheapest to delivery from L2. If we have forgotten that CTD is basically the closest bond that is similar to the bond which is being traded, and it can be delivered. So it's mutually agreeable. So CTD is the bond which can be delivered. So cheapest to deliver with all the same parameters, the cheapest one will be delivered, and this is the conversion factor. So conversion factor is, again, it's market driven, it's decided. So BPV of futures is basically, I'm saying that PV01 of a future contract is basically PV01 of a bond upon conversion factor. This will give me a PV01 of the bond. And now I need to know how many contracts I need to buy and sell so that my duration gap is taken care of, right? Now, what is duration gap? So we understood that duration gap over here I've written in, it is basically PV01 of liabilities minus PV01 of assets. If this is close to zero, your interest rate risk is close to zero, right? Because your assets and liabilities are taken care of in terms of interest rate risk. If this is not zero, so to make them zero, what we need to do is basically divide this by the number of future contracts. So it will give me the number of contracts to buy. This is contracts, not contacts. This is contracts. So this will give me the number of contracts to buy. So let us understand this simply. The duration gap is say 2500 for example, and the BPV of futures is 25. System or my fund manager will now know that to manage a 2500 million or whatever duration gap, I have to basically buy 100 contracts if the duration is negative, right? Because the duration is negative, then I need to increase my duration, or I have to sell 100 contracts depending on what is the gap, if it's a positive or the negative gap. So this is basically what we mean is basically how do you manage the duration gap with the exchange traded derivatives. So we spoke about contingent immunization in the last slide, that first match the liabilities with the assets, and anything remaining can be done in active management. You can take risk on that amount of cash flows and invest in risky securities. Over here, very important statement over here: under hedge in rising rates and over hedge in falling rate scenario. Under hedge in rising rates, when the rates are rising, what will happen to the prices? It will go down. When you know the prices are going down, why to over hedge? Might as well under hedge. Over hedge in falling scenarios. If the interest rates are falling, price will gain. You know there is going to be a certain gain. Then over hedge. You want to benefit from this because the prices are going up in falling rate scenario. This is what the statement means. Uh, okay. Another one-liner statement that I've put over here is open to market and liquidity risk. So you have to understand that when you do contingent immunization, your portfolio will always be open to market and liquidity risk, because you might, there might be a scenario you might have invested in some bonds or any other structured product for your active management, and your portfolio demands for redemption, or they want the cash flow, but you're not able to sell that structured product in the market. So that is known as a liquidity risk, wherein you are not able to liquidate your assets to fund your liabilities. And market risk, you're always open to market risk, right? Unless and until you're investing in a risk-free bond. There are some risks that are involved in these hedging strategies. Very simple. Let us take one by one. Hedges are always approximate. You can never have an exact hedge. Duration assumes parallel shift except key rate duration. We know that key rate duration is across multiple yield curves, and that will help us to understand the impact. All immunization techniques are open to structural risk. What is structural risk? Again, to repeat: yield curve flatten, yield curve steepen, butterfly, and negative butterfly impact that we discussed. You can go back to the slides and see. Weighted average YTM is used instead of IRR. Portfolio is open to price risk. We discussed this. We again discussed that futures BPV is based on assumed CTD of the bond because it's a dealer driven market. For the CTD, I might not know the exact amount, right? The exact bonds price. This is an assumed price because it has a conversion factor. Portfolio is open to spread risk because your assets and liabilities could be discounted and compounded at different rates. So there could be a spread risk. Credit risk in OTC derivatives is in used to manage the duration gap. So OTC derivatives is basically your swaps and everything, and any other instrument which is done in the dealer driven market. So what we are saying over here is the credit risk is because of the 2008 crisis, the amount of capital that is required as collateral is increasing, and that is why the participation is decreasing. There could be a scenario that the dealer market, the dealer might not be able to fulfill his obligations, so it is open to credit risk. And we already discussed what is liquidity risk. I gave you an example wherein you would want the portfolio would demand for cash flows, but you will not be able to sell your assets in the market. So again, index-based investing. So we understood from the first slide that there are two ways. One is the cash flow method, where you can match the cash flows, match the duration. Second is basically invest in the indexes. So we know that pure indexing is investing as per the index, enhances with some gaps to the portfolio and the index. They can have some differences. Active management is the largest active share. The portfolio could be virtually 20 to 30% different from the benchmark. And the goal of index based investing is basically to reduce the tracking error. We know that tracking error is standard deviation of portfolio return minus benchmark return. So there are some issues with FI indexing. So like we all are familiar with indexes, right? S&P 500 or Dow Jones, Nasdaq, whatever, and so on. So these instruments and these indexes are very easy to understand and easy to contemplate, easy to replicate, and everything. But with fixed income, there are multiple different problems, right? Every bond is different, so heterogeneous bond nature. Equity is almost every equity is same for the issuer. An issuer will have not more than one equity. If he has two companies, he can have two equities. Otherwise, he'll always have one equity listed in the market. But a single issuer can have more than 100 or 200 bonds in the market. So each bond is different for issuer. OTC bonds are open to default risk. We know that because of the capital requirement after 2008. Bond pricing valuation is not an informed one. So this is basically there could be some bonds for which the market prices are not directly observable. So we use the matrix pricing. So we know that we have a matrix pricing wherein we have the ratings, we have the buckets, we have the rates. We use a matrix pricing to price the rate bonds. And index bond credit quality changes quickly as index is reconstituted. So what does this mean is basically suppose my index has 100 bonds, right? And 20 of them are maturing today. So for these 20 maturing bonds, new 20 bonds will be added. Now, since this 20 is added to the 100 bucket, the credit profile of the bond portfolio changes. So the credit quality might change. Factors to consider while indexing to minimize risk. We know match the duration for KRD. If KRD is matched, the structural risk is matched. Match the PV or distribution of cash flows. We know that the PV of assets should be greater or equal to the PV of liabilities. There are other ways of effective indexing. Stratified sampling. Stratified sampling is basically if you want to mimic a benchmark and there are attributes, multiple attributes that you want to do. Attribute 1, attribute 2. Over here you can say weight of the portfolio. So you want to invest in say all bonds which are in your index and they are in the clean energy. So if the index has 5% of weightage, you will invest 5% in such bonds. Stratified sampling, if you read it from the book, it's very simple. I have written the simplest language. Sampling the bond pool with various characteristics. Weightage is determined. So we determined 5% is invested in the index in clean energy. So I will also invest 5% in clean energy bonds. If 10% is invested in oil sector bonds, I will invest 10 sector in oil sector bonds. So on and so forth. There are various ways. If you don't want to do active management, you can do a passive exposure. You can invest in bond, debt funds, debt exchange traded fund, synthetic OTC strategies, swaps, FRA, total return swaps. We'll come to that, and exchange traded derivatives. You already know bond futures. So what is an TRS? So TRS is like an IRS only, okay? But over here the total returns are exchanged. So if any of the counterparty is facing a negative return also, the other counterparty is liable to pay and receive and so on and so forth. So we have written that negative performance is also exchanged. The risk open to counterparty risk since it is OTC if the dealer fails. Short term hence open to rollover risk because we understood that if an instrument is short term and you are at the lower end of the yield curve, you are at a lower YTM, you will have to pay a higher price. So short term will always have the rollover risk. You might not have a favorable investment. Regulatory capital burden to perform OTC transactions. We know that after 2008, the Basel regulations have increased the capital requirement for OTC transactions. There are various other techniques. I'll just go very fast on this one because it's in the next chapter also. Laddered portfolio, bullet portfolio, barbell. So what is laddered portfolio? We are understood, right? There are multiple assets to fund your liabilities. So liabilities will be, safe. So regular cash flow at intervals, least duration risk because you have multiple cash flows. Bullet portfolio is single maturity, as the name suggests. Barbell is short-term maturity and very long maturity. So you will have maturities at two curves, the short term and the long term. So this becomes like a barbell, you're exercising barbell, long term and short term. There are some advantages of laddered portfolio. One is natural liquidity, obviously, because it is maturing after given intervals, say 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. Less exposure to structural risk due to distributed cash flow. Obviously, cash flow is distributed, less exposure. Laddered portfolio convexity is greater than bullet portfolio as cash flow are more dispersed. We know that convexity is macular duration square plus macular duration plus dispersion upon 1 plus IRR. So if dispersion is more, convexity is more. Ladder will have minimal mid risk as compared to bullet and barbell duration risk. Same logic. Laddered portfolio outcome can be achieved by buying multiple ETFs. So if you don't want to really do much of the investment analysis, you can buy ETFs which are maturing at different intervals, and you can create a laddered portfolio for yourself. I think so. That's it. Reading 20 is extensive. We'll cover it in other lecture. Thank you.